And they partnered with the Marshall Islands Ministry of Health to conduct the study for Marshallese staff and so forth. Now, the study design, it was an open label, parallel arm, randomized controlled trial. There were 169 adults with type 2 diabetes that were randomized to receive either standard medical care, which was the control group, so short form SMC, or the plant-based diet and exercise and other lifestyle interventions as well. This was, of course, the intervention group. And you can see in this picture, this is Dr. John Kelly, and he was, really the primary investigator. He was also the founding president of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And myself, and this is Ketty Gowdy, another dietitian that came to help out. And then our Marshallese staff, and one lady here is the second from the right. It was a Japanese volunteer who was absolutely invaluable in helping us during the start of the program. So this program involved 12 weeks of intensive lifestyle medicine. And the first 2 to 4 weeks, we had a more intensive program after the first 2 cohorts. But basically, the first month or so was very intensive, and then the intensity of the program waned. So we went from seeing people 4 times a week for 6 or 7 hours a time to twice a week, and the last month once a week. And then we followed them for 6 months, and they were trying to do things at home. But the lifestyle medicine really focused on healthy, whole food, plant-based diet and exercise. But we touched on all the pillars of lifestyle medicine in the program. The diet was very high in fiber, high in phytochemicals and antioxidants. It had minimal highly processed foods, and it was relatively low in fat, but not as low in fat as the studies we talked about, the PCRM studies of 2006, 2009, that were more like 10% of calories from fat. So ours included more nuts and seeds. And as part of the program, we were very committed to exercise. So we did cardio and strength classes every day. The participants were with us, and walking after meals. So after every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, our participants walked. And I can tell you that made a huge difference in outcomes. We provided education sessions. So a typical 5-hour program with us would look like they would start with exercise, then we would have a cooking class, then we would have dinner together, then we would have education session, and walk would fit in there right after the meal as well. And our education sessions included, of course, food and nutrition information, gardening, exercise, stress management, information about sleep, social connection, freedom from addiction, care of your eyes and feet, and medical management, medications, complications, all of those things. This man is Dr. Kamal. He was the surgeon at the hospital. And so he came to present on why it's so important that when you get a sore, when you have diabetes, you come to the hospital right away and not wait until you have gangrene and he has no choice but to amputate. So we really partnered with hospital staff as well. So let's take a quick peek at the results. So first of all, for fasting blood glucose, we saw average drops of 72 milligrams per deciliter at 2 weeks in the intervention group. At 12 weeks, it was 45, and at 24 weeks, it was 25. So you can see as the intensity of the intervention wanes, so do the results. A1C dropped by 2 points at 12 weeks, which is really remarkable. Really the best results of any study other than Dr. Furman's study that we talked about. However, using a tool called the medication effect score, we estimated A1C would have been reduced by 2.4% at 12 weeks, which was identical to Dr. Furman's trial. and 1.6% at 24 weeks had the medication dosages not been reduced. HSCRP, which is our measure of inflammation, dropped 1 to 1.5 points. Weight dropped about 6.2 pounds at 12 weeks and about 5.5 at 24 weeks. So not nearly as much weight loss as Dr. Furman's trial. And then HOMA-IR, which is a measure of insulin resistance, dropped about 2.5 points at 2 weeks and about 2.1 at 12 weeks and almost 1 at 24. Triglycerides fell really strongly, and this was really quite unusual. In a lot of trials, we don't see this level of drop in triglycerides. So 47 milligrams per deciliter at 2 weeks, 38 at 12 weeks, and 20 at 24 weeks. So as you can imagine, this trial was considered a success. We saw remission in 23% of participants with a baseline A1C of under 9. And 63% of, and we didn't look, I wish we would have looked at the duration of diabetes in association with the percent of participants that achieved remission. 63% of medicated patients reduced their glucose lowering medications, and we saw significant reductions in blood pressure as well. Participants reported less pain, less disability, clearer thinking, better sleep, and less constipation. So, and our research has been published in a couple of places. It was, first of all, we published the protocol in 2019 in Frontiers of Nutrition. And then just last year, 2024, in Diabetologia, one of the leading diabetes journals, we published the results paper. So I'm just delighted with that. So many people ask me, could this type of program work at home? And the answer is absolutely. If there is hope in the Marshall Islands, given the enormous barriers they face, there is hope at home. In the Marshall Islands, produce is expensive. There's limited opportunities for fitness. Everything is more difficult. Medical care is more challenging. And so for us, to me, it should be a breeze by comparison. So let's move on to talk about what makes whole food plant-based diets so effective in treating type 2 diabetes. Well, first and preventing. First of all, there is less overweight and obesity in plant-based eaters. And so you can see these are Epic Oxford and Adventist Health Study numbers, but basically this pink underneath or over top of the bars is the healthy BMI range. And you can see in Epic Oxford, everybody was within the healthy BMI range, even the omnivores. However, the leanest were the vegans, which are the green bar, lacto-ovo-vegetarians, the blue bar, and fish eaters, the yellow bar. But in Adventist Health Study 2, the only group that fell within the healthy BMI range were the vegans, with a BMI averaging 23.6. All of the other categories were above. So generally, the more plant-based you go, the lower the BMI. Well-designed plant-based diets tend to maximize protective factors like fiber and prebiotics and antioxidants and phytochemicals, while they minimize potentially harmful factors such as saturated fat, refined carbohydrates, the pro-inflammatory molecule in meat called mu5GC, endotoxins, and pro-oxidants. And they really help us to get to the root causes of type 2 diabetes and put a lid on the drivers of this disease, like inflammation, oxidative stress, lipotoxicity, and dysbiosis. And I want to just touch on each one of these drivers of diabetes. So inflammation, we have a systematic review and meta-analysis of 21 studies that compared omnivorous participants to people eating plant-based diets and found that those eating plant-based had lower CRP. For vegans, it was about 0.5 point or 0.5 milligrams per liter lower. And for vegetarians, it was 0.25 milligrams per liter lower. And in pre-diseased participants with impaired kidney function, vegetarian diets were associated with an almost 4 milligram per liter reduction in CRP. Oxidative stress, plant-based diets are associated with reduced oxidative stress, likely owing to the higher intakes of antioxidants and lower intakes of pro-oxidants. There was a 2022 study that examined multiple oxidative stress biomarkers and reported lower oxidative stress among vegans compared to omnivores. For lipotoxicity, vegans have been shown, and just in case you haven't heard the term lipotoxicity, lipotoxicity is the storing of fat in places where it's not meant to be, like our liver and pancreas and our muscle tissue, for example. Vegans have been shown to have lower intramyocellular lipids, which is lower lipids in the muscle tissue, which is a marker of lipotoxicity, than matched omnivores. And low-fat vegan diets have been shown to reduce the likelihood of lipotoxicity as well. And finally, dysbiosis. Vegan diets promote changes in the gut microbiome that are associated with weight loss, a reduction in fat mass and visceral fat volume, and an increase in insulin sensitivity. And fiber-rich plant foods supply prebiotics to beneficial gut bacteria with very favorable health impacts. And the bottom line is we know enough. We know enough to make lifestyle medicine our first line of therapy for people with type 2 diabetes. And so that brings us to the dietary protocol part of this presentation, 10 steps to optimizing plant-based diets for the treatment of type 2 diabetes, with the dietary goal being remission. Step number 1 is achieve and maintain a healthy body weight. This is absolutely critical. And a healthy body weight is not the same for everyone. For some people, a BMI of 24 is too much. They're still storing too much fat in their liver and pancreas. So our personal fat threshold matters. And even people that appear to be of normal weight may need to lose weight in order to reduce insulin resistance. So reducing body fat stores is really key. Restoration of healthy body weight is strongly associated with diabetes remission, as we saw in the DIRECT trial. But even a modest weight loss of 5 to 10% of initial body weight can improve insulin sensitivity and glycemic control. So let's dig a little deeper into those DIRECT trial results. And you recall, this was a very low calorie meal replacement for 12 weeks and then food reintroduction to 12 months. And at 12 months, 46% of the participants had achieved remission compared to 4% in the control group. But remission rates, this is the really interesting piece of this research, were directly correlated with weight loss. So people that lost at least 15 kilograms or 33 pounds, 86% of them went into remission. People that lost 10 to 15 kilos or 22 to 33 pounds, 57% went into remission. People that lost 5 to 10 kilos or 11 to 22 pounds, 34% went into remission. And people that lost 0 to 11 kilograms or 0 to 24 pounds, only 7% went into remission. So for many people, losing at least 15 kilograms or 33 pounds is a very, very powerful way to induce diabetes remission.